I first noticed it on a southbound Red Line train, the late one out of Grand Central, edging through the underbelly of Manhattan after 11:40 p.m. The car was nearly empty, just a man slouched in the corner under a flickering ad panel, two tourists fussing over a phone, and myself standing by the middle doors because I'd missed my preferred spot as the train pulled in. I wasn't tired exactly, just frayed the way you get after too many days at the office chasing approvals that never arrive when promised. The tunnel lights streaked by in a fast pulse, throwing the interior into cycles. Lit, almost shadowed. Lit again. That's why I didn't think much of it at first. That, paired with the dull metallic sound the train always makes after pulling out of 14th Street, like it's swallowing itself. But there was this stretch, just after the conductor announced, "Next stop, Houston," where the tunnel lights blinked out completely for about 2 seconds longer than usual. And in that dark gap, just there, I saw, reflected perfectly in the window glass across from me, a fifth person in the train car, sitting directly in the seat behind me, in a spot I knew was empty when I boarded. I turned. There was no one there. Empty vinyl seat. The reflection was gone when I looked back. And again, I told myself it was leftover adrenaline from the client call earlier, or maybe I'd been looking at the shadow of my own shoulder skewed in the glass. But the moment lingered uneasily, like a taste you can't place. I switched cars at Chambers using the excuse of wanting more space, even though the car I found was somehow even emptier, but at least cleaner. That night I took a picture of the abandoned seat on my phone, right before the doors closed, half as a joke to myself. Just a dark blue seat under a grime-ringed window, nothing in it except for the faint suggestion of an imprint. I deleted it the next morning. It happened again, 3 nights later, then again the following week. Not every ride, just the late returns after work bled too far into the evening. Always between 14th and Houston. Always in the reflection alone. Never in the real car. The shape was clearly human now. Not seated behind me anymore, but farther down. Hunched and motionless in the far corner, where the wheelchair signs are posted. It never moved. And that made it worse somehow, like it belonged to the fabric of the car, like something caught under the vinyl layers, an error you weren't supposed to notice. The second time I tried capturing it with video, lazily filming the window when we sank into that patch of blackout, but playback only showed my own faint outline, overexposed against the flickering fluorescent rods. Even weirder, the timestamp on the recording was wrong by nearly 8 minutes, marked 12:07 a.m., when it had been barely midnight when I boarded. Not the kind of difference you notice until you're trying to find proof of something. I changed my route for a bit after that, cutting east to Bowery and hitching the J uptown. More walking involved, but fewer headaches. Still, weeks passed, and things loosened. Days bled into each other. The season began its second stage of frost. I convinced myself it had been a trick of fatigue, environmental stress, or possibly nausea, all things I could Google and file away. But then, late December, something shifted. I'd stayed too long at the office, again, because my manager's tone had started suggesting I wasn't positioning myself for Q1 ownership. I caught the Red Line home without thinking, same segment, same time. The man across from me was filming the window. His phone was tilted at the same angle I'd once used. and he glanced at me after the blackout light pass with a strange mixture of disappointment and fear. We didn't speak until East Broadway, when the train had temporarily stalled due to signal conditions and everyone was pretending not to notice the stutter in the AC vents. I don't remember how the conversation started, just something bland about construction delays. And then he said, very precisely, "You saw it too, didn't you? That corner seat." His voice was calm but strained, like someone trying to keep still during a nosebleed. "You saw it the first time, and now it knows when you're there." I wanted to laugh, but couldn't find the sound. Something had gone cold in my arms, a sensory paralysis that hadn't dissolved even after the train jerked forward. He didn't say anything else, just nodded faintly, then got off at the next platform without glancing back. I never saw him again. The subway windows weren't the only place it appeared after that. There was a cab ride back from a client retreat in Jersey, inching along the FDR near 23rd, sleet smearing the windshield into silver-gray blotches, when I glanced into the rear passenger window and glimpsed not myself, not my reflection, but the back of someone sitting parallel to me, too close to the glass. A shoulder wrapped in a dull, coarse fabric, like unbleached wool. No one else was in the cab, but the sight was there in the reflection, fatally mundane, just a human shoulder, gently listing like it was in a light sleep. When I turned to look back at the seat itself, empty. But for the span of a heartbeat, there was a warmth there, as if someone had just left seconds ago. The driver said nothing. His eyes never left the road. But when I asked him how long he'd been driving shifts, he said without inflection or humor, "This car's never had a back seat." My phone gallery had started corrupting files, just the ones I'd taken at night or in moving vehicles or any image with glass surfaces. Sometimes the thumbnail would appear fine, but when tapped, the photo would vanish into static, or worse, return with unfamiliar smears, traces of faces I hadn't captured. One showed me sleeping, head leaned against a cold train window, a shot I never took, at an angle only someone facing me could have managed. Its timestamp read 3:41 a.m. The file couldn't be deleted. I considered seeing someone, but couldn't form a diagnosis that didn't sound like weakness or fantasy. I became obsessive about light angles, checking window reflections against room geometry, mapping train car layouts in my head. But the more effort I put into understanding it, the more integrated it became. The figure, if that's what it was, never moved, never crossed thresholds. It simply showed itself through media. Not the thing itself, but its echo or placeholder or impression. And only when I looked away. When captured, its images distorted, but always impassively. It never flailed, never broke visibility rules like a horror film phantom. It obeyed a logic of mirrors, of digital sensors. It mirrored back the part of me that refused to see. In late January, I booked a suite at one hotel Brooklyn Bridge, trying to distance myself, quite literally, from the subway grid. My plan was a full week off, budget be damned. On the third night, I left my laptop camera recording while I stepped out to get food, thinking maybe, just maybe, it would capture something I missed. When I returned, the footage showed an empty room. But at the 21-minute mark, the ambient sound changed. The hum of the mini fridge stuttered, and the light from the hallway flickered against the far wall. Then, just for a few frames, The feed fractured. I paused it there. In the deep shadows cast along the window-side chair, something was seated. Not vivid, not even fully visible. Just fold lines in fabric and a subtly indented cushion beneath no weight. Familiar. Too familiar. After that, I stopped checking the footage, but I left the camera recording every night. Sleep began to break apart. I'd wake around 2 or 3, breath tight, convinced someone had just closed a door I hadn't noticed open. The strange part, my suite had no hallway door, only the main entry and the glass sliding panel to the balcony. Internal movement wasn't possible. One night, while watching traffic over the Brooklyn Bridge from the hotel balcony, chilled, shoulders hunched, my laptop steaming from the morning's dew, I noticed a peculiar behavior in pedestrians crossing below. Some paused halfway across the bridge and turned, not to the Manhattan skyline, not to the East River, but toward my hotel. Specifically, they faced upward, toward my room. Not in unison. Individually, at off-timed intervals, like a code written in glances. They looked up, held their gaze for 3 to 5 seconds, then continued walking. I watched for almost 2 hours, counting 8 occurrences. One woman even raised her phone and took a picture. Toward my window, not the skyline. I never left the room after that. Each night became a slow erasure of sound, time, detail. I sealed the mirrors under fabric, covered the TV in a bath towel, turned off the LED clocks, but it still found small angles, light reflections in my coffee. The reversed lens flare on stainless steel countertops, my own eye rebounding from the glass, always near edges, always seated, never me, never moving. I checked out 5 days early. The hotel said nothing, no inquiries, no complaints, though the desk agent didn't make eye contact while checking me out. I wandered Dumbo briefly in daylight, but every pane of glass I passed, every parked car, seemed to hold too many shadows in proportion to bodies. I walked into the York Street station but turned around before the turnstile, heart hammering, certain the tiles were too reflective. At home in my apartment near Clinton and Rivington, things normalized for 4, maybe 5 days. The weekends, which used to drag, vanished in a blink, somehow always 3 hours shorter than I remembered. My kitchen appliances began behaving strangely. Microwave clock always reset to 3:41. My refrigerator's display panel occasionally pulsed with unreadable characters, soft light patterns that seemed almost familiar, like an old spreadsheet file I couldn't quite name. I stopped opening the blinds entirely. The last recorded encounter took place in the Oculus Transit Hub. I'd gone there just to convince myself I could still be around reflective whiteness without incident. The architecture there feels sane, almost antiseptic. Pristine ribs, intentional design, nothing hidden. Except, I took a photo of the ceiling from the mezzanine level, and in the center beam, high overhead, 20 vertical feet above my position, there was, again, that seated posture, folded into the space that wasn't shaped for sitting at all, oblivious to gravity, disinterested in location, not peering down, waiting, angled always just far enough from directly facing me. That night I received a voicemail from an unknown number. No voice, only room tone. The audio spectrogram, when granulated, showed minute fluctuations. 5-point patterns aligned across the screen, the same angles as the beam ceiling in the Oculus. I haven't photographed anything since. I haven't looked into reflective surfaces. I haven't boarded any train or elevator with visual symmetry. I changed my phone's screen to grayscale, kept brightness low. I brush my teeth with the mirror off the wall. I've become geometry avoidant, resistant to patterns structured for reflection. But just yesterday, walking past the public bathroom on the High Line near 23rd Street, the silver faucets aligned just so. And in the convex half glance of brushed steel, I caught it once again. Not seated this time. Standing just behind me, facing me, still expressionless, still indifferent. And for the first time, I glimpsed what its hand was resting on, my own shoulder, flat-palmed. No one around me reacted. The moment passed. The High Line is narrow, elevated, hemmed in by design. You cannot retreat sideways, only forward or back. And all the reflections face inward.